Hey everyone, Jay again from appmusic tutorials with another Zenbeats video. After a long hiatus, I am back in action and in production on a new series of Zenbeats videos. This time I'll be demoing concepts using the current version of Roland Zenbeats, version 2.1 on PC. Most of the topics will be transferable to whatever device you're using, but please note that topics covered in my earlier videos are still valid, so I'm not going to be covering those topics again. If you need to go back to a previous video to freshen up on something, feel free to do that. But I do have future videos on the way, including topics such as track templates, song templates, automation, and more. So during today's tutorial, you'll learn about 4 ways to apply effects in Zenbeats. Effects in Zenbeats can be applied at the sample level for sequencer tracks, the track level, using sends, and the ability to apply effects to the main output channel. So we'll be taking a look at how to accomplish those tasks during today's video. To demonstrate these topics, let's just go ahead and start a new song. And it's going to bring us into the drum module. Let's just go ahead and close this up. And I want to switch over to the timeline view. And then we're going to go into the sequencer just by double clicking on that track icon. All right, so here, what I'd like to do to set this up is just kind of cycle through the patterns and find basic 8. Just a real basic techno/dance vibe going on there. And now what I'd like to do is demonstrate how you can actually apply effects to each of these sounds if you wish. First of all, we have to pop out the song inspector. So down on the left, click on that little arrow. And here's the song inspector, and I actually went through this in a lot of detail in the advanced drum sequencer tactics video. So if you want to go back to that video, I'll have a card up shortly, but if you need to refresh your memory on those items, you can definitely do that. Here I wanted to refer back to this because this is where you apply effects for the samples that you're using in the drum sequencer. So I can, apply independent effects and other options for each one of these sounds in my sequencer. Really cool. So as an example, if I wanted to apply an effect to the kick drum, I can just click on the effect button. The effect panel opens on the right, and I'm just going to grab the flanger. Grab the flanger, I'm going to cycle through here through a few different presets here, see if I can find something to my liking. Let's just leave it there on 2 flanger. And now to play this back and just hear the kick, I'm going to solo the kick. That sounds okay. That's the unaffected sound. Here's the effect. I like that sound there. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to close the effect, stop the playback, and now we've got the flanger applied to just that sample. If I want to see how it sits in the mix, I can unsolo the track and play it back again. That sounds just fine to me. All right, so we can also, in addition to applying effects here, an effect, we can have multiple effects stacked on one on the other. Keep in mind, though, that if you have to rearrange the effects here, you're likely going to lose your settings. Let me give you an example. I've got my flanger here. Let's suppose I want to put an EQ on this kick too. I'm going to pull out my equalizer, and I can tweak and modify my settings as needed. And I can play it back. It sounds good. But now, what if I wanted to try out reversing the effect chain and seeing how it sounded then? Well, here I can't drag and drop. I'm hoping that this is something that Roland addresses in upcoming releases. But in order to actually change the order to have the equalizer come first, I'd have to delete the flanger and then add the effect back. And the problem with that is, unless I happen to have saved that as a sound, unless I saved it as a default, I'm going to have to play with this to get the sound back to the way it was, because it's basically defaulting to whatever the original settings are for the flanger for the first time you use it, basically. So I'd have to cycle right back through, find the option I liked, and start monkeying around with the options there. So that's one thing to consider, is when you're applying these effects, kind of make sure what you want. Otherwise, you might lose your settings in trying to adjust the order of these effects here. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at another level of effects, track level effects. So again, this is a sample level effect, and this is only available in the sequencer. Close the sequencer. So basically this is our channel strip for the drums, and this is where we apply track level effects. So just below where it says plugins, this is the drum module, that's the instrument we're using. Below that is where we can apply our track level effects. So if I choose audio effect, let's suppose I want to affect the entire track with a bit crusher. All right, so let me go ahead and play that back, and you should see that now listed here. Let me play that back and see how it makes it sound. Let's see what it sounds like turned off. I actually like that sound a lot. I'll just leave it at the default, but you could cycle through, right? You know, you can cycle through and pick different options. But I actually like this. I'm gonna go with that. Now, something that you have to be aware of is when you're adding in effects, you're going to introduce some type of level shift. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to that, because I can see that now that I've got all these effects out here basically unchecked with their levels, I'm getting a really, it's not clipping yet, but it could very easily clip. Yeah, I guess it is clipping here. So I can bring that down here in the channel, or I can make up for it by going into the effect and modifying the gain. And again, the reason I would do that is so I don't introduce more loudness than needed for that track. I want to be able to introduce the effect, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean I want to make it louder just because I've got the effect applied. All right, I'm going to close that bit crusher, and now that effect is being applied to the entire drum track. Now, the next type of effect is referred to as send effect. So a send is a different type of track, and we'll get to that in a moment. Before we do that, though, let's add a few more tracks to the mix here. Let's go ahead and click on the plus button, add an audio track. And to get your list of options for adding audio clips, just double click someplace in here. I try to make it like right here where 0 is. And then you'll see your various audio clips, effects, and so forth appearing over here on the right. So we're looking for an item. I'm going to do a search with my spyglass here. GR Chill. Oops. And I'm looking for GR Chill Trail A. And I'll click the plus button to insert that. Let's add another track, an audio track. Again, double click right here on the dividing line. and I'm going to do a new search. Circuit breaker 138, there it is. And now I'm just going to play this back and start adjusting levels. All right, so I've got these balanced as far as I want to at this point. And now that we have a few tracks to work with, let's talk about send effects. Send effects are used to apply the same effect across multiple tracks or multiple channels. A send is just another track. So if we go to the track insert button and choose send track, notice that it places the send out here, and then it wants us to pick an effect. A typical effect one might have in a send, so you can apply sparse amounts across tracks, would be reverb as an example. So if I grab the Zenbeats multiverb, here's reverb, and I can apply that now through the use of this send to any of these other tracks. I can feed the reverb sound from that send track, and all that does is houses this effect, and we can then disperse amounts of reverb across tracks using that idea. So let's go ahead and apply some multiverb to our drums using the send. Click on the drum track here, track 1, and then over on the channel strip, go down to the send section and choose plus send. Choose Zenbeats multiverb, that's the send that we created just moments ago. Or we can add a brand new send track and set it up along the way right now as we're working. In this instance, I'm just choosing Zenbeats multiverb, our send 1. And now something that's odd, let's spread this out. Let's click into the meters area here. I want to see like the solo and mute buttons. For this effect, if I solo the drums and just play this back, there's apparently no reverb being applied to this track, which is odd, because for the other effects that we soloed the track for, we actually heard the difference. But with this type of effect, I'm not quite sure why. We actually mute the other tracks in order to hear how that effect is affecting the unmuted track. So let me unsolo this, and I'm just going to mute the audio tracks here. Now I'll play this back. Now I'll select the drums so I can get to that channel strip. And here, now you can hear there's a definite difference. In my opinion, unless you're going for something just way out of whack, less is more with reverb. But now I can apply that same reverb to another track. So let me mute this track and go down to the audio track for the guitar, and I'll apply the send effect here. Zenbeats multiverb. Here's the little dial up, lets you choose the amount you want applied, and we'll just play this track back. So whatever amount of reverb or whatever effect you wanted to apply to that track, you do it right here. If I wanted to apply any of that reverb to my bass track, I can go to the third track and go to the send and just pick up that reverb, and then whatever dosage I want applied, there it is. And let me go ahead and test this one out. Oh, there it is. Wrong track. There we go. Okay, so that is how we can set up sequencer level effects, at the sample level, how we can set up track level effects, how we can set up send effects. First, we have to build the send track, which contains no recorded data, right? It's only there to house whatever effects you want to apply. And typically sends have one effect in it. So you can, have one for delay, one for reverb, one for something else. If you do a chain of effects for a send, it doesn't sound that great, really. It's just nice to have a singular effect per send, and that way you can control precise amounts sent to various tracks. So the last type of effect I want to talk about are effects that can be applied at the main out level, the main output level. Now, the main output is something that's already out here. We just can't see it. But if you go to the eyeball on the upper right and choose Show Main Track, it should appear down here. So here's the main track. And so you can add audio effects to the mains track. And this is the main output. So when you're looking here and it says main out, it's your main left and right outputs for doing a stereo mix down. So the types of effects you might put here would be ones that you want to use to generally sweeten the sound overall. So like some type of exciter or enhancer, sometimes there's compression, maybe a very fine amount of a different type of delay to overall give the song an ambience. So to apply an effect to the main, it's the same principle. We just make sure we select the main, go to audio effect. And now let's say I want to put a reverb on the entire mix. And I want it to be a plate reverb this time around. Now I'll play this back. Yeah, it's a little too much. So I pulled down the wet dry mix here, and it sounds a little bit more polished, but not really. Sounds like it might be too much, but I think you get the idea. I think you get the idea that we've got all these different possibilities for levels that we can assign effects to. Again, sample level, track level, send level, and mains level, and you have a lot of flexibility. Now, let me just leave you with one more thing before we take off. First of all, you might want to save the song. So if you want to save your song, give it a name. I'm just going to call mine JFX tutorial. And I'm just going to save that for later on. I'm going to close out of my effects. So another thing I'm going to leave you with here is that when you're applying effects, don't overdo it. It's possible to have, a reverb on a kit piece, aka sample in the sequencer, a reverb on the track itself, and a reverb from a send going in there, and also another reverb on the main, and all of a sudden you've just got way, way, way too much going on. So at each step, you want to make sure that you're, being sensitive to that fact. Well, that's it for today, folks. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback, I'll highly encourage you to leave it in the comments section. And if you'd like to see more Zenbeats tutorials, please consider subscribing. Thanks again for watching, and take care until next time.